Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and I don't normally sound like this. I have a really bad cold, so I'm trying to overcompensate because it's a little thin, and if I don't try really hard to speak in a low tone, I just sound like I'm crying, so that's fun. Today I'm going to be talking about the books I read in September. Why am I like this? So the first book I read was To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. Jenny Han? I watched this movie on Netflix and it was so cute, so I decided to pick up the book and I'll tell you my thoughts. I'm actually going to talk about this whole series at one time because I read the entire series this month. So even though I read other books in between, this is the time of the LARA trilogy. So, oops, that's the second. To All the Boys I've Loved Before. When Lara Jean likes a boy, she writes them a letter that she never plans to send. However, her letters mysteriously land in the hands of her crushes, and suddenly she has more than just embarrassment to deal with because one of the letters was sent to her sister's boyfriend, who is also her best friend, who she happens to be in love with. So to cover her tracks and to save her relationship with her sister and her best friend, who is dating her sister, she decides to start a fake relationship with popular boy Peter Kavinsky. Of course, drama ensues. Which one will she choose? It's so dramatic, I don't know! Anyhow, if you have been following my channel for some time, you know that I pretty much hate contemporary books. Fantasy and science fiction and dystopian is mostly what I love, but mostly fantasy because I need some dragons. However, I read this book and I loved it. What does that say about me? Highly recommend to anybody who likes YA. It's super cute, and beyond that, there's just so much heart in it. Like, the family dynamic is adorable, and it feels very real and relatable and sweet. So, love the first one. Moving on! I'm not going to describe the plot of the second and third because I feel like that will spoil the first book, but Number 2, P.S. I Still Love You. General thoughts? As good as this one, John Ambrose McLaren is bae, and this book made me so mad. The third book, Always and Forever, Lara Jean. I'm so grateful for this book because I'm cured! I don't like contemporary. I liked the first 2 books because there was enough relationship drama to drive the plot. This one is everything that I hate about contemporary. There's nothing to drive this plot. It's basically just like, look, there's some normal people living normal lives, and I'm like, I don't care. So, yeah, I mean, Jenny Han's writing is very good, and her characters are lovely, but, like, there's not enough in here to sustain my interest. It was, really boring, and took me a lot of effort to get through, and so I'm cured! I don't like contemporary. So yeah, this is my favorite in the series, purely because it taught me that I do need magic in my life. The Lara Jean trilogy. Worth a read. Alright, moving on. The next book that I read in September was Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. If you've been following my channel, you'll know that I'm part of Emma Books read-along, so we're reading all the Shadowhunter books in 1 year, leading up to the release of Queen of Air and Darkness. So I'm super behind on this read-along, so I was trying to catch up this month. I didn't. But yeah, I discovered that I love and hate contemporary, so that was really useful. Anyhow, this is my second time reading this book. I enjoyed it much more the second time. I used to like the Mortal Instruments better, but having read both series over again in the last 9 months, I actually like this one better. I would say Cassandra Clare's conclusions, they're often very long, and they don't need to be. But yeah, if you don't know what this is, I'm not going to give you too many plot details because I don't want to spoil the first 2 books, but this is another in the Shadowhunter series by Cassandra Clare, which follows the Shadowhunters who are demon hunters in their adventures trying to save the world from demons. This one takes place in Victorian London and follows Parabatai warriors Will and Jem and their friend Tessa, who is a warlock, and they're trying to save the world from the mysterious Magister and his army of clockwork creatures. So yeah, great description. Why do you come here? Why do you watch me? I like this book a lot. It's super emotional. It always makes me sob. I say always. I've only read it twice. Twice it's made me sob. Will and Jem's relationship is so precious. Tessa irritates me a little bit because she's so nice, and it could be because I'm really not that nice, so I'm like, why are you like this? And why am I not? I think the world is very nice. I mean, exciting. I think Cassandra Clare's world fits really well with the historical setting. The conclusion, like I said, is super emosh, and it's the only love triangle in fiction that doesn't irritate me, so it's got that going for it. Next book I read was Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. So I'm doing a bunch of rereading because the last book in the Throne of Glass series comes out this month, October 23rd, and so I'm trying to reread the Throne of Glass series in preparation for that, so I reread Crown of Midnight. If you don't know what this is, it's the second book in the Throne of Glass series, which follows assassin Selena Sardathian on her adventures. So at the end of the first book, she wins a contest to become King's Champion / King's Assassin secretly. So this book, she's off being assassiny and battling the darkness in her own heart while trying to also battle the mysterious growing darkness in the castle which threatens to devour the entire land. Good times. I like this book a lot, but for me the Throne of Glass series doesn't really start until Heir of Fire. This one is cute, but not that sophisticated, but super emosh, so you know, I love it. And the next book that I read was City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare, which is the 6th book and conclusion to the Mortal Instruments series. Follows Clary Frey and her adventures in the New York Shadow World, among other places. Don't really want to give you that much plot because I don't want to ruin it for you. I recommend checking them out, especially if you read YA fantasy. How can you like that and not know about these books? But I just want to talk about how thick this book is. Here's the tea. It don't need to be that thick. Yeah, I love the ending. Kind of like Clockwork Princess, the endings are really good to both, but there's a lot of nothing going on in there. But still recommend. Also, can we talk about how Jace brings a condom into hell? I'm gonna go fight in the demon realms and save the world, but also gotta be prepared. Always be prepared, but I was very amused. I also really like how this kind of works as a conclusion to both the Infernal Devices, which is this series. It connects them both because there's stuff at the end of this one which is like kind of unresolved and then it's resolved in this. So even though this is actually not part of this series, it's like a really nice like connection. So if you ever need to read this series and you haven't, read it in publication order because then all the little hints will make more sense. The next book that I read in September was The Caged Queen by Kristen Ciccarelli.
PronounceNames.com. Ciccarelli.
I still don't know how to say her name. Kristen, I'm so sorry, but I love you. This book is the companion novel to The Last NAMSARA, which is Kristen's first novel. It takes place after that book, but follows a different protagonist, Queen Roa. In an attempt to save her oppressed people, Roa marries childhood friend and now enemy foreign king Dax, believing he will have to consider the rights of her people if he's married to one of them. However, it seems that no matter what she does, Dax is selfish, irresponsible, and sometimes even cruel. Then a chance to right every wrong arises. A chance for Roa to rid herself of this enemy king, as well as saving her sister whose soul is currently trapped in the form of a hawk. During the relinquishing, which is a time when the spirits of the dead are said to return, Roa can reclaim her sister. All she has to do is give the king and her husband's soul in return. So yeah, there's this magical knifey thing, and basically the gist of it is, stab king, king dies, sister pops back up.
Like daisies!
That was a Mulan reference, despite my underwhelming tone. This book is absolutely incredible. I binged it in a couple of hours. I can't tell you enough how much I adore Kristen's world and her writing. I first fell in love with The Last NAMSARA when it came out. Last year, I guess it was. And so I was so excited there's a sequel. And there's gonna be a 3rd book, so that's a win. Basically, I love these books. You can watch my Last NAMSARA spoiler-free review. It's basically just me fangirling for like 7 minutes straight. I'll link that below. If you have not picked up these books, please, what is wrong with you? I don't know if my opinion holds any weight for you. Probably not, because who the fuck am I? But like, read these books, okay? They're so good, honestly. There's dragons, there's beautiful love stories, and babies. And I just love all the characters so much, and like, oh, it's so good. So on that very eloquent and articulate and descriptive note, let's move on. The final book that I read this month was Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the series, and my personal favorite. People say I'm gonna die alone, and then I'm like, I'm not gonna die alone because I'm dating Rowan. Send help. Actually, I think I am Rowan, so it's probably just because I'm a narcissist. This book follows Selena. She is sent by the king to assassinate the rulers of the foreign realm of Wendlin. She goes off to do that, and meanwhile, in the process, she faces her past, which holds a secret truth which could change the course of the history of the world forever. So there was this big reveal at the end of Crown of Midnight, which I will not spoil, and so this book is dealing with the aftermath of that, and Selena struggling to come to terms with her real self. It's all just a metaphor for being gay. I'm just kidding. Also, the world just massively expands in this book. This is where Sarah's vision kind of actually begins, because from what I read ages ago, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I remember reading. Initially, Sarah planned like a 6-book series, but only got a book deal for 3 books, so she had to introduce the story in Throne of Glass that could be resolved in 3 books, and so that's why Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight are like really simple and there's not that much going on. And then Heir of Fire, when she was writing this, her deal was extended to 6 books, which is now 7, I think, or 8 if you include the prequels. And so this is where we actually see what was planned in the sense of like there's multiple narrating protagonists, there's multiple geographical locations happening, all these different things that are ultimately like tied together in later books. So it becomes definitely more of a high fantasy, whereas I'd say the first 2 read kind of like fairy tale retellings almost, which I guess Throne of Glass started as a Cinderella retelling, so maybe that makes sense. Whereas once you get to Heir of Fire, it's like, okay, we're in the like Game of Thrones-esque like high fantasy. What am I doing? But yeah, still with like Sarah's melodramatic writing that I love. All the like relationship cheese, but like, oh my gosh, Manon and the dragons are like, Like I said, Selena has to face who she really is, and it's just this beautiful story of like internal struggle and dealing with trauma, and like, anyway, I recommend. So yeah, this was a really good month for me. I read, I guess, 8 books, so that's pretty good. Better than the 2 from last. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!